When I had a stroke at 60, the entire fabric of my family shifted overnight. Their indifference cut through me like a cold sea wind. My name is Eleanor. I lived in a small suburban house just outside San Francisco, California. That morning, I had woken up like any other day, making my way to the kitchen for a cup of coffee. I had just wrapped my fingers around the mug when it slipped through my trembling hand and shattered on the floor. I froze. The entire left side of my body had gone numb. I couldn't move. My mouth drooped awkwardly and my words came out slurred and broken. Drool trickled down my chin as I screamed silently over and over in my head. Help me. Somebody help me. But no one heard. Fortunately, my husband Frank was home at the time. He rushed in at the sound of the crash and found me crumpled on the floor. He immediately shook our daughter Rachel awake and called 911 as he fumbled for his phone. The ambulance rushed me to United Hospital in the San Francisco Bay Area. Rachel sat beside me, her face tight with worry. My son Travis arrived a few hours later. I had foolishly thought that this illness might draw them closer together, even if only temporarily. But the moment the doctor left the room, they began arguing. The doctor had explained that it was a mild stroke caught early enough that with proper care and rehabilitation, I had a good chance of partial recovery. The key, he emphasized, was that I would need family support during my stay. I felt a flicker of relief. Recovery was possible. I had some savings. Insurance would cover most of the expenses, and I wouldn't be too much of a burden. How naive I was. Before the echo of the diagnosis had faded, Frank stood up, adjusting his jacket as he spoke. I promised Carol I'd rehearse with her this week for the August dance. I'll be staying at her place to practice. You kids better step up and do your part. The way he said you kids, as if he weren't family, stung deeper than the stroke itself. Without so much as a glance back at me, he walked out. Rachel rolled her eyes and snapped, I'm always the one taking care of Mom. It's your turn now. Travis shot back instantly. And how much has she done for you? Free rent, babysitting your kids, paying your bills. Don't act like you're doing her a favor, Rachel sneered, not missing a beat. Oh, like she's been awful to you. Who helped you get that car? Who fronted the down payment on your house? You're her son too, Travis. Or have you forgotten you owe her just as much? They argued like enemies, trading accusations in front of my hospital bed, fighting not over me, but over who was more used by me. I couldn't hold back my tears. They knew. They knew how much I had given to each of them, yet neither was willing to give anything back. And then it happened. A sour smell rose from my body. I had lost control of my bladder. The argument died instantly. The air thickened with a heavy, unbearable silence. I tried to lift my hand to cover my face to hide my shame, but my arm wouldn't move. All I could do was sob helplessly, my eyes darting between them, pleading silently for help. Travis looked away, grimacing. He stood up abruptly. I've got a meeting to prepare for. Sorry, I have to go, he muttered. Without another word, he hurried out of the room. Rachel, fuming, barked after him. Coward, all you ever do is run away. Then she turned to me, forcing a brittle smile onto her face. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make sure he comes back. But she too spun on her heel and left. The door swung shut behind her, and just like that, the world fell silent. I lay alone in that hospital bed. The dampness beneath me, the hollow silence of the hallway, and the numbing cold that had settled deep into my bones. All of it swallowed me whole, like a frozen lake in the dead of winter. I tried to cry out, but with my twisted mouth, I couldn't form a coherent word. All I could do was watch helplessly as one by one they left. My pants were soaked through. I lay there unmoving like a piece of discarded furniture no one wanted to claim. Everyone in the room, other patients, their families, had witnessed the disaster of my family's meltdown. No one said a word, but their glances, heavy with pity, pierced deeper than any spoken judgment. I had never felt so ashamed, so humiliated, so utterly alone. At last, a caregiver from the bed next to mine couldn't bear it anymore. She let out a soft sigh, walked over to my side, and without a trace of disgust, gently helped me change into dry clothes. She even rummaged through her own bag and pulled out a spare cotton towel, carefully slipping it beneath my head. "There you go, sweetheart. Now your pillow won't get wet," she murmured, her voice as soft and warm as the San Francisco evening breeze. My vision blurred with tears. The gratitude swelled so fiercely in my chest that I couldn't speak. I could only lock my eyes onto hers, desperately willing her to feel my silent thank you. She said it like it was some noble sacrifice, but even as the words left her mouth, Amanda was already on her phone, scrolling through Instagram reels and short videos. The nurse had shown her how to reposition me every few hours to avoid pressure sores. Amanda had nodded earnestly, but the moment the nurse left the room, she was right back on her phone. Her attention span lasted no longer than a blink. She managed to put me in an adult diaper. Sure, but she'd only change it once a day, if that. My skin began to burn and itch from the neglect, especially down below. It felt like fire ants crawling across my body, biting with every breath I took. But I couldn't move. I couldn't scratch. I couldn't speak. I just lay there blinking rapidly, desperately, hoping the kind caregiver from the next bed over would see me. And it wasn't like I couldn't afford better. I had savings. I had Medicare. I could have easily hired a private nurse, even a part-time one. But Amanda would wave off every suggestion. "Mom, do you know how much a private nurse costs? Why waste money on a stranger when you have your own daughter?" She said it with that patronizing smile that barely touched her eyes. But if she truly cared, would I be lying there in soiled clothes, skin burning from neglect? Later, the doctor pulled Amanda aside. I could hear murmurs through the wall. When she came back in, she was furious. "Pack up, Mom! We're checking out!" My eyes widened. My lips tried to form words, but all that came out was a garbled sound. "You're not going to get better here," Amanda said, like she was talking to a toddler. "Strokes leave permanent damage. It's better for you to be home, in your own bed. I'll take care of you." The doctor followed her into the room, trying to explain gently. "Mrs. Whitmore is showing steady progress. With continued therapy, she could regain much of her independence. Pulling her out now could undo her progress," Amanda snapped. "You just want to suck us dry. You've charged us $13,000 for 1 week. Are we supposed to sell our house to pay for this?" I wanted to scream. It wasn't her money, it was mine. But Amanda held the power of attorney, and that meant legally she had the final say. And just like that, I was discharged. I tried to say I wanted to stay, but Amanda didn't even look at me. My voice, weak and broken, never stood a chance against her determination to be done with the hospital. When we got home, she set me up in my bedroom, the same one I had once filled with framed pictures and warm quilts. But the warmth was gone. She dropped me off and disappeared into the kitchen. The care she provided was 2 meals a day, if she remembered. Morning and night. Lunch? That wasn't her problem. And if I needed changing or washing or turning, that was on Amanda's schedule, when it suited her. Days blurred together. I couldn't tell when it was morning or night. There was no clock in my room. The blinds stayed shut. I began to feel like a ghost trapped in a house I once called home, until one afternoon, a tiny hand touched mine. "Grandma?" It was Caleb, my sweet 4-year-old grandson, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, kissed on scraped knees, and fed every lunch for his first 3 years of life. "Grandma," he said, tugging at my limp hand, "why don't you play with me anymore?" I tried to smile, to raise my hand, to show him that I still saw him, but then he said something that froze my soul. "Mommy said when you die, I can have your room for my toys." Then he tilted his little head. "Grandma, what does die mean?" My hand dropped mid-air. My body started shaking. He looked just like Amanda had at that age. Round cheeks, wide eyes, innocence untainted. But now, the same little girl I raised was already waiting for my death, telling her child he could start moving in once I was gone. I tried to keep my expression still, but the grief was a wave that broke over me, drowning me in silence. Caleb looked scared and ran off, and just like that, the quiet came crashing down again. That evening, Amanda came into my room, her face wearing a sugary, sweet expression that didn't reach her eyes. She half lifted, half dragged me into a sitting position and started spoon-feeding me something bland and mushy. "Mom," she cooed, like we were girlfriends catching up, "where do you keep the bank accounts? The house deed? You know, all that boring stuff?" I choked on the bite in my mouth. Tears welled in my eyes, not because of the question, but because I could see now so clearly. She didn't care if I healed. She didn't even care if I lived. She only cared about what I might leave behind. I didn't respond. She didn't wait for an answer. She started ransacking my room. She tore open my dresser drawers, flinging out carefully folded sweaters and scarves. She yanked hangers off racks and tossed clothes into piles like she was sorting laundry at a thrift shop. I watched helplessly as years of my life, gifts, keepsakes, tokens, were manhandled like junk. Then she found a small cloth pouch I'd hidden in the headboard cubby. Inside was a simple silver bracelet. My mother had given it to me when I was a teenager, Amanda's great-grandmother. I had never let anyone else wear it. She opened the pouch, sneered, and tossed the bracelet aside like it was a gum wrapper. It landed with a cold clatter on the hardwood floor and rolled under the bed. Something inside me cracked. For the first time in weeks, I felt something surge through my right arm, a fierce, angry pulse. My fist clenched so tightly it hurt. My breath quickened. Dust coated every surface in that room. I started coughing, violently. Thick phlegm caught in my throat, refusing to budge. Amanda wrinkled her nose. "God, Mom, could you be any more disgusting?" I coughed until I could breathe again, barely. Amanda ignored it all, still digging through drawers, rifling through cabinets, tearing apart everything I'd once kept neat and sacred. When she finally stormed out and slammed the door behind her, the house fell quiet. I was surrounded by chaos, by ruined clothes, by my life strewn across the floor. But all I could think about was that silver bracelet lying just out of reach. I pushed myself sideways off the bed. My left side was still dead weight, so I crashed hard to the floor, cheek hitting the ground. I didn't care. With my right hand, I reached for that bracelet, dragged it to my chest, and held it like it was a lifeline. Then, from the living room, I heard her voice. Amanda, on the phone. She was talking to Jason. Her voice was too casual, too cheerful. "Yeah, Mom's pretty much done for," she said. "It's just a matter of time now. We'll be free soon." She giggled. Actually, giggled. "Dad's too busy dancing with that old hag to care, so once she's gone, it's cleanup time." My blood turned to ice. Sweat dripped from my hairline to the floor. My hand clutched the bracelet tighter, tighter, like I could squeeze the betrayal out of my bones. She paused. "I mean, she's probably crying again. Let her. It's not like she can do anything about it." I bit down on my lip to keep from sobbing out loud. I could taste blood, and right then, Something in me broke completely, not just a little crack, but a full, irreversible shatter. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there on the cold floor, my body aching, my mind replaying every moment of my 60 years. I tried to find the moment, just one, when I had wronged my children so badly that they would treat me like this. I searched and searched, but there was no great sin, no betrayal. All I could remember was being a mother who gave up her dreams to make theirs possible, who cooked, cleaned, sacrificed, who whispered comfort in the dark when nightmares came, who clapped the loudest at every school recital. I gave everything. So why was I here, abandoned, humiliated, treated like trash? At dawn, Amanda finally noticed me still lying on the floor. She gasped like she was shocked, then dragged me back into the bed with as much grace as a sack of potatoes. "Mom, what the heck are you doing down there? So gross," she muttered. Then she shoved a peeled hard-boiled egg into my mouth like I was a baby bird, and just like that, she was back at it. "Hey, Mom," she said casually. "Where's the bank info again? The deed to the house? You know, just in case anything happens?" I didn't answer. Her eyes narrowed. "Look, it's not like it matters. Jason and I are going to inherit everything eventually. Might as well save us the paperwork now." I turned my head away. That's when she rolled her eyes and stormed out again, grumbling about how ungrateful I was. After she left, I reached under the bed with shaking fingers. I found what I had hidden months ago, a backup cell phone. With trembling hands, I snapped the battery in and turned it on. The screen lit up like a beacon. I dialed the first number that came to mind. "Donald, I need help," I croaked, but his voice snapped through the speaker like a whip. "I'm rehearsing with Ruby right now. Call Amanda or Jason." And then, click. I stared at the screen, at the call-ended message, and felt my lungs close in. I didn't even have the strength to cry, but I had one more number, one I had kept safe, just in case. I dialed again, and this time, when a warm voice answered, I let out a long, shaky breath. "Diane," I whispered, "come get me. Please, take me to the hospital." No questions, no hesitation. Diane Harris had been my best friend for over 40 years. She once told me, "Linda, if I don't hear from you in 24 hours, I'm kicking your door down." And I had laughed, thinking it was just something people said. But that morning, she showed up. Her son helped carry me out of that house. They wrapped me in a warm blanket and laid me in the back seat of her car. I looked out the window as Amanda's house, my prison, shrunk behind us. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel fear. I felt free. Diane drove straight to United Hospital in San Francisco. The moment we arrived, she held my hand tightly, her voice breaking. "Sweetheart, what happened to you?" For the first time in months, someone wanted to hear my story. Someone saw me, not as a burden, not as a wallet, not as an inconvenience, as me. And so, through broken sentences and tearful breaths, I told her everything. Every cruel word, every diaper left unchanged, every cold meal, every ignored cry. Diane never let go of my hand, her eyes filled with tears. Then my phone buzzed, Amanda, then Jason, calling again and again. I looked at Diane and nodded. She answered for me. Diane picked up the call and didn't even try to be polite. "Amanda," she said sharply, raising her eyebrow, "this is Diane, Linda's best friend. She's with me now, safe and cared for." I could hear Amanda's voice screeching through the phone. "What? You took her? Without telling me? I had to leave work early to come look for her. She's making everything so difficult." Diane held the phone away from her ear, rolled her eyes, and responded coolly, I'm the one who brought her to the hospital because none of you were doing your job. If you have a problem, take it up with someone who cares." Then she hung up. She turned to me and squeezed my hand. "Don't worry, Linda. I'm not going anywhere." From that moment on, Diane took over everything. She helped me hire a private caregiver, Elena, a warm, gentle woman from Mexico who treated me like family. She spoke to me with kindness in her voice, changed my clothes with care, massaged my legs when they cramped, and even braided my hair while humming old Spanish love songs. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt peace. No Amanda shouting, no Jason blaming, no Donald making excuses. Just me, sunlight, and soft music playing in the hospital corridor. The days passed, and I began to heal. Slowly at first, one word at a time, one finger twitch, one slight turn of the head. But it was happening. The doctors were amazed. "She's recovering at a rate we rarely see," one said. "She's got a will stronger than steel." Diane brought me fresh raisin muffins, chicken noodle soup, and chocolate pudding. We laughed together, played cards, and whispered about everything and nothing. I even asked Elena to help me order a new phone. I bought myself a basket of fruit, a bouquet of tulips, and a soft cashmere blanket. Diane burst into laughter when she saw the delivery. "Linda, have you lost your mind?" I smiled. Number, I've finally found it. For years, I had saved every penny for my family, denying myself everything. But now I was spending it on me, with my spirit lighter, my body healed faster. When the doctors finally cleared me for discharge, I stood at the hospital doors with Diane at my side and Elena behind me, holding my bag. My house, Amanda's house, was waiting. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Inside, I found the living room rearranged and Caleb's toys scattered everywhere. She hadn't expected me back so soon. I calmly picked up every toy, every misplaced item, and stacked it all in the center of the room like a pile of evidence. Amanda walked in later that evening. Her jaw dropped. Then she put on that fake smile. "Mom, you're back. Oh, I've missed your roast chicken so much." She handed me a bag of groceries, expecting me to pick up where we left off. But I stared at her, then dropped the bag right back into her arms. "You think I owe you something?" I asked, my voice cold and clear. "You have hands. Cook your own meals." Her eyes widened like I'd slapped her. This time, I didn't blink. I turned, walked to the TV, and turned up the volume. She retreated into the kitchen, slamming drawers and chopping vegetables angrily. 5 minutes later, I heard her wail. "Mom, I cut myself." She stood there, bleeding finger held high, waiting for me to come running. I barely looked at her. "Handle it yourself. I'm not a doctor." Her mouth dropped open in disbelief. She didn't know what to do with a mother who didn't drop everything to serve her. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, Amanda tried again. She hovered near my bedroom door, nursing her bandaged finger, waiting for sympathy I no longer had. "Mom," she said sweetly, "you've changed since you came back from the hospital?" I folded my blanket, sat up straight, and replied, "That's right. I figured something out." She blinked. "What?" "In this world, you can't rely on anyone, not even your own children. The only person you can count on is yourself." That hit her like a slap. She turned her face away, pretending to check her phone, but I could see it in her eyes. Shock, maybe even guilt. But I wasn't finished. "You should start looking for another place to live," I added. Her jaw dropped. "You're kicking me out? I'm your daughter." Then she played her final card. She pulled Caleb over and shoved him toward me. "You're really going to send your grandson away too? Go hug Grandma, Caleb." Caleb wrapped his tiny arms around me, and my heart softened for a second. Amanda saw it and smirked, thinking she'd won, but I stood up, lifted Caleb gently, and handed him back to her. "If you don't move, I'll call a moving company and have them do it for you." The smile vanished from her face like smoke. She tried everything after that. Begging, bargaining, guilt-tripping. But I had heard it all before. The more she pushed, the firmer I became. "You don't even care about Caleb," she snapped one evening. "You're heartless." I stared at her, calm as ever. "Caleb is your child, not mine. I helped out of love, but I'm not your servant. I'm done." I stopped cooking for them, started eating simple meals, just for me. Rice, vegetables, soup, nothing fancy, but mine. She tried to shame me. "This is what you eat. Who's supposed to eat this bland crap?" I looked up from my bowl. The doctor told me to stick to a light diet. I'm following his advice. You want something else? Cook it yourself. Amanda was fuming. "This house is mine too," she shouted. "I'm not leaving." That was it. I took out my phone, called a moving service, paid in full, and scheduled it for the next morning. When the movers arrived, Amanda blocked the doorway. "This is all my stuff. You can't do this." I calmly opened the drawer, pulled out the deed, and held it up. "The house is mine. You're just a guest, and your time is up." She screamed. She clung to Caleb. She threw insults, but I said nothing. They packed her things. She left, and the door closed behind her with a satisfying click. For the first time in my life, my house was quiet. No clattering pots, no crying children, no footsteps pacing angrily down the hall. Just silence and peace. I sat by the window and asked myself the question no one had ever let me ask. What do I want? And I knew the answer. I enrolled at the community college down the street. I didn't care about grades or a degree. I just wanted to learn again. American history, photography, creative writing. I signed up for everything that made my heart beat faster. The first day I walked onto that campus, I felt like I was 20 again, and it was just the beginning. One day after class, as I walked home with a spring in my step and my books tucked under one arm, I turned the corner and saw Jason standing on my porch. He was fiddling with his old house key, jamming it into the lock again and again, confused that it didn't fit. I walked up slowly, pulled out my new key, and unlocked the door. He looked at me with surprise, then confusion. "New locks?" he asked. I didn't answer. I just stepped inside, leaving the door open behind me. He followed. His eyes immediately went to my backpack and the edge of a course schedule poking out. He snatched it before I could even react. "Mom, are you going to college?" he asked, laughing like I'd just told him I planned to become a rock star. "Yes," he blinked. "At your age?" I nodded calmly. "Wouldn't it make more sense," he continued, "to stay home, take care of the grandkids, maybe do a little cleaning? You're not getting younger." That's when I let out a low chuckle. Not a laugh of amusement, one of disbelief. "I'm not interested in being your housekeeper anymore," I said evenly. "I've spent my entire life serving this family. Now I'm serving myself." Jason rolled his eyes. "Amanda told me you've been acting like a rebellious teenager." "Then maybe I'm finally learning how to live," I replied. "You're being selfish," he muttered. I looked at him dead in the eye. "Where was your concern when I was lying in a hospital bed, helpless?" He didn't have an answer. Jason sulked in the living room for a while, trying to wear me down with guilt. It didn't work. He left in a huff, grumbling about how ungrateful I'd become. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, I exhaled. The air felt lighter, my chest looser, my soul freer. I had shed their expectations like an old, tattered coat. Then, just as I was sipping my tea and flipping through a textbook, there came another knock. Donald. My estranged husband stood there with a laundry bag the size of a body, plopped it on the floor, and grinned like nothing had ever happened. "Hey, old lady," he said. "I'm back." I stared at him, then at the bag, then back at him. Without a word, I picked up the bag, walked to the porch, and threw it out. "Wash it yourself." He blinked like I'd slapped him. "You're my wife," he growled. "What good are you if you won't do my laundry?" I smiled faintly and closed the door right in his face. Donald didn't leave right away. He banged on the door, muttering curses, demanding I act like a real wife. But I didn't flinch. We'd been sleeping in separate bedrooms for years. He had danced off with Ruby while I lay in a hospital bed alone, barely clinging to life. Now he wanted to walk back in like nothing happened? I returned to my desk, opened my thick psychology textbook, and read. Outside the door, he barked louder. "Linda, where's dinner? I'm hungry." "Linda, my meds. Go get them." "Where's my damn dance shoes? Ruby's expecting me to rehearse." I didn't answer. Not once. The kitchen began to smell. Dishes piled up in the sink, sour food rotting in the trash. He thought if he let the house go long enough, I'd cave and clean like I always had. But this time, I let every plate sit, every spill stay. One evening, when the stench became unbearable, Donald swaggered into the kitchen with a smug look. "I knew it," he said. "You always come crawling back. That's what women like you do." I stared at him for a moment, then calmly said, "If Ruby is so wonderful, go live with her." His smile dropped. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't throwing anything. I was just done. We had been forced into marriage by tradition. I gave him 4 decades of loyalty, and when I needed him most, he was dancing with someone else. "Let's get divorced," I said. He scoffed. "You're too old to divorce." "No," I said. "I'm finally old enough to understand I deserve better." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the whole kitchen shook. I didn't move, just sat down and began drafting the divorce papers. The news reached Jason and Amanda by morning. Amanda called, shrieking, "Mom, you've lost your mind. You're acting crazy. You'll regret this." Jason was more calculating. "You're over 60. Why go through this now? You'll just end up alone and embarrassed." I smiled. "They can think what they want," I whispered to myself, because for the first time in decades, I didn't care what anyone thought. As expected, word spread fast. My kids thought they could talk me out of it. Amanda was the first to call, her voice shrill and dramatic. "Mom, seriously? Divorce? At your age? You've completely lost it." Then came Jason, trying a more rational tone. "Come on, Mom. It's not like Dad was that bad." So he praised Ruby. Big deal. It's not a reason to throw away a 40-year marriage. But it wasn't about Ruby. It was about the years, the silence, the small ways I disappeared trying to keep everything together. They didn't get it, and I didn't need them to, even when Jason muttered, "If you do this, you'll lose us." I replied, cool and steady, "Then go." He went quiet. I think that's when it finally hit them. I wasn't bluffing. I was done. Meanwhile, Donald tried to save face. He started dressing up, slicking back his hair, showing off with Ruby at the senior dance club like he was auditioning for Dancing with the Stars. One afternoon, I showed up to the community center. Just to see, Ruby twirled in a sequined dress. Donald followed, clumsy and sweating. When the music stopped, he spotted me. His smug grin returned. "Linda," he called out, panting. "Still sulking?" I just smiled faintly and walked right past him. "Come on," he called again, jogging after me. "Let's be adults. We've been through so much. Do you really want to end it this way?" I didn't answer. I unlocked my door. He followed me inside, dropped onto the sofa like it still belonged to him. "Pour me a glass of water," he ordered. I stared at him. No words, just stillness. Then I reached into the drawer, pulled out the house deed and the bank documents, and slammed them down on the table. "Split everything 50-50. I'm not asking. I'm telling." He looked like he'd swallowed a rock. "Linda, why?" I met his gaze. My voice was low, calm. "I want to ask you the same thing. Why was it so easy for you to walk away when I was in a hospital bed alone? Why did Ruby's dance practice matter more than your wife possibly dying?" He opened his mouth, then shut it. "I had things going on," he muttered, "and you turned out fine, didn't you?" That was it. No apology, no regret, just excuses. The man who shared my life couldn't even admit what he did. So I stood up and said it plain. This isn't a tantrum. This is freedom. He stormed out again, furious, humiliated, but I didn't watch him go. I sat back down, signed the papers, and felt the weight lift from my chest like a caged bird finally set free. We finalized the divorce soon after. I took my share of the savings and moved into a cozy one-bedroom apartment just outside of downtown San Francisco. It was warm, filled with light, and most importantly, mine. I had enough left in the bank to live comfortably, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty spending it on myself. By the time Amanda and Jason found out, everything had already been settled. Amanda called first, furious as ever. "Mom, are you out of your mind? How could you leave Dad? He's a good man." I didn't argue. She wasn't angry because I left Donald. She was angry because it meant the safety net was gone. And the kicker, she moved back in with him, claimed she was helping take care of Dad. I almost laughed out loud when I heard it. While they tried to recreate the old household dynamics, I was too busy building a new life. That day, I slipped on the blazer I'd bought just for the occasion, tucked my freshly printed community college diploma into my purse, and headed to lunch with my girlfriends. The cafe was flooded with soft sunlight. We passed my diploma around the table like it was treasure. Diane sniffled when she read my name. "Linda, you really did it," she said, voice thick with emotion. Another friend added, "If I hadn't had to stay home raising my siblings, maybe I could have done this too." That's when it hit me, so clear it made my heart skip. Why not all of us? I leaned in, voice steady and sure. "Ladies, I have a proposal." They looked at me curious. "We've spent our lives taking care of everyone else. It's time we take care of ourselves. Let's start a support group for women like us, women with dreams still burning inside, no matter our age." Their eyes lit up one by one. It started small, computer classes, workshops, even a few weekend road trips. We called it Granny's Hands, and we made it loud and proud. Our community center buzzed with life. Some women formed book clubs, others learned how to paint. A few brave souls even tried online dating, though that's a whole story for another time. One afternoon, after a crafting session, a young man burst into the room glaring. "Mom, you didn't cook dinner. I'm starving." He was yelling at Marcia, the gentlest woman in our group, the kind who always said yes. But not that day. She stood up, eyes like steel. "Are your legs broken? I'm your mother, not your maid." The room erupted into applause. After Marcia's bold outburst, something shifted in the room and in all of us. It was like she had struck a match that lit the fire already smoldering in our chests. That moment became legendary in our group. We repeated her words like a mantra, "I'm your mother, not your maid." From then on, Marcia blossomed. She stopped rearranging her life for her adult kids. She started dancing on weekends, joined us for sunrise walks along the coast, and even signed up for a painting class she'd always wanted to try. A few weeks later, she told us with a grin, "My oldest son begged me to come over and babysit. I told him if I help, it's out of kindness, not obligation." And the best part? Her relationship with her kids improved. Why? Because they had to finally recognize her as a person, not just a service provider. We watched with joy as other women followed suit. Clara, who hadn't been on a date since 1987, started seeing a retired jazz musician. Beth, a former secretary, began teaching business English to immigrants for free. Lucille, who always dreamed of photography, saved up and bought herself a camera. She took portraits of us all, laughing in the sunlight like girls again. We were rewriting the narrative, one joyful, rebellious act at a time. Of course, not everyone was thrilled about our little uprising. One Saturday afternoon, during a digital literacy workshop, a balding man in his 40s burst into the room and started yelling, "You ladies should be home helping your families. What kind of grandmothers are you? This is disgraceful." Before I could even rise to respond, the others pounced like a pride of lionesses. "You just want your mother to cook, clean, and drop dead quietly. Maybe try orbiting your wife for once instead of demanding your mom orbit you. We're not over 60. We're over being used." The man turned beet red and stormed out, muttering something about entitled old ladies. We all laughed so hard, we nearly cried. That day, we printed shirts that read, "Over 60, not over our worth." Ah, yes, the gossip. It was Diane, of course, who delivered the juiciest updates, her eyes twinkling with mischief like a teenager sharing secrets by a locker. "So," she said, sipping her hibiscus tea with great theatricality, "you're not going to believe what's happening at Amanda and Donald's place." I leaned in, already smiling. Amanda moved in, thinking she'd have everything under control. Remember, she thought she could just recreate her childhood setup. But surprise, surprise, Donald is a nightmare roommate, I chuckled. He always was. No, Linda, I mean next level, she said. First week, he burned 2 pans, left the faucet running, and nearly flooded the kitchen. He can't find the laundry detergent, doesn't know how to use the dryer, and refused to pick up after himself. I raised an eyebrow. And Amanda, crying, Diane said, deadpan. She called me the other night saying, and I quote, "Mom, I was wrong. Dad's a giant man-child." I nearly spit my tea. Did she now? She tried making him babysit Caleb for one afternoon. He complained about his back for 3 days straight and insisted she drive him to urgent care. He's basically useless. That was putting it mildly. Then Diane grinned wider. And guess what? Ruby left. My head tilted. What? She couldn't take it anymore. Apparently Ruby's a neat freak. One day she found dirty socks on her piano bench and snapped. Told Donald she didn't marry a man to become a janitor. She packed her things and moved out the same night. I let out a low whistle. Wow. She even slapped him. I sat back, a slow, satisfied grin spreading across my face. Now that's justice. Karma wasn't just real. It had taste. A few weeks later, I got a call from Amanda. I answered casually, holding my chamomile tea in one hand. "Mom." Her voice was low and tired. I was wrong. I didn't answer, just let the silence hang. Dad's impossible, and Caleb's not doing well either. He misses you. Still, I said nothing. Then she added, "Ruby was nothing like you." I didn't know how much you did. For both of us. I leaned back in my chair, let the soft jazz playing in the background carry the silence for a moment, and then replied, "Amanda, I'm packing for a wine tour in Napa Valley. Don't bother me. I could hear her jaw drop through the phone. I washed your dad's clothes for 40 years, I said simply. Funny, I don't remember anyone offering to help me. And that was the end of that call. We were halfway through a Friday night poker game when Diane leaned over the table, barely containing her grin. Linda, she whispered, her voice dipped in gossip syrup, you are going to love this. I set my cards down, already intrigued. Do tell. So after Amanda moved back in with your dear ex-husband, things went south real fast. But it turns out that wasn't even the most entertaining part. She paused dramatically, letting the anticipation build like steam under a kettle. Ruby, she continued, the graceful, always put together Ruby, is a total neat freak. Color-coded mops, labeled spice jars, vacuuming 3 times a day, you name it. That doesn't surprise me, I said with a smirk. She always looked like she was trying to sanitize the air. Diane chuckled. At first, she kept the place spotless herself, but after a few weeks of Donald leaving coffee stains on her white counter and dropping his socks everywhere, I winced. Oh no! She lost it, like full-on meltdown. She was yelling, waving a toilet brush around like a sword. Donald tried to ignore her, like he used to do with you, and said, Just do your thing, Ruby, I'm resting. I snorted. Oh, Donald, that man thinks rest is a personality trait. Ruby didn't take it well. She screamed, I didn't marry you to be your maid, and, get this, slapped him right across the face, hard. Our whole table gasped in delight. Wait, Susan said, eyes wide. She actually slapped him? Hand to God, Diane said, crossing her heart. And Donald's response? He whimpered like a wet cat, said, Linda never gave me this much attitude. That did it. We howled. The laughter bounced off the walls of the community center like music. It was more than just funny. It was vindicating. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the crazy one. I felt seen. A few months later, word got around that Donald had suffered a stroke. It wasn't sudden. After our divorce, his routine had gone completely off the rails. No one was around to remind him to take his medication, eat balanced meals, or get proper rest. He stayed up all night watching TV reruns and snoozed through the day, skipping breakfast and lunch. His health collapsed under the weight of his own carelessness. It wasn't just the stroke. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. His blood pressure was through the roof. The man who once strutted around like he owned the world was now a frail, sunken version of himself. When Diane told me, I didn't feel sad or smug. I just felt curious. So I decided to visit him, not out of love, and certainly not pity, but to see what remained of the man who once dismissed me like yesterday's mail. The moment I stepped into his hospital room, his eyes flicked open. For a second, he looked like a little boy caught sneaking cookies, sheepish, hopeful, small. Linda, he croaked, his voice weak, lips dry and pale. You came. I gave a quiet nod, not stepping any closer. I didn't smile. I didn't scowl. I just stood in the doorway, absorbing the sight. The room was dim. His bedside table was cluttered with pill bottles and half-eaten Jell-O. A faint beeping from the monitor kept time like a slow, tired metronome. I just came to check in, I said plainly. That's all. He opened his mouth to speak again, but before he could get a word out, I caught the scent, the sharp, sour stench of urine. He'd soiled himself. His cheeks flushed bright red, and his eyes flickered with shame. I didn't flinch. I didn't move to help. Just then, Amanda and Jason entered. Their timing was impeccable, as always, showing up after the damage had already been done. Both of them froze when they saw me. "Mom," Amanda said, startled. "I didn't know you were coming." Jason looked at Donald, then at me, then quickly back at the ground. "Mom, aren't you going to help take care of Dad?" Amanda asked, her voice soft, trying to sound sincere. "Yeah," Jason chimed in. "He's not doing well. He needs support. You were always the one who knew how to care for him." I turned to face them slowly, my voice as calm as the eye of a storm. "You seem to forget. Donald and I are divorced." I let the silence hang there for a beat. "And now," I said, turning to Donald, who looked more frightened than he had in his entire life, "it's your turn to take care of him." Their mouths opened, but no words came out. I gave one last glance toward Donald, his eyes watery, face pale with dread. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't say goodbye. "Take care, Don," I said gently. "Hope they don't just bring you home to wait it out." And with that, I walked out the door. I walked away from that hospital room, not with triumph, but with peace. Real, soul-deep peace. For once, I wasn't weighed down by guilt or the need to fix everything for everyone. I had stepped out of the wreckage of my past, and I wasn't turning back. That fall, we celebrated the first anniversary of Granny's Hands at the community center. What began as a simple gathering of women reclaiming their lives had blossomed into something powerful. That night, the room sparkled. String lights twinkled overhead. The walls were decorated with photographs of our events, hiking trips, computer classes, birthday brunches, even karaoke nights. Tables were dressed in soft linen, candles flickering gently beside little bowls of homemade candy. The air buzzed with laughter and music, the kind of joy that doesn't just echo, it settles deep in your bones. I was invited to give the opening speech. As I stepped up to the small podium, my hands steady, I looked out at the faces of women who had once doubted themselves, now radiant, full of fire, strong. Some wore their best blouses, others came in comfy sweaters, but all of them wore that same expression. Pride. I cleared my throat and began. "I'm so grateful for my late-in-life rebellion." A few chuckles rose from the crowd. I smiled. For decades, people told me what I should and shouldn't do. Every "I'm saying this for your own good" really meant this is what works best for me. But one day, I realized something important. I paused, took a breath. We've spent our entire lives living for other people, husbands, children, parents, since we were barely old enough to vote, and not once did we stop to ask ourselves, what do I want? A hush fell across the room. Heads nodded slowly. There's no law that says we have to give the rest of our lives to anyone. Our greatest responsibility now is to take care of ourselves. So yes, if that makes me rebellious, so be it. If it means I live on my own terms, then it's worth everything. I paused again and let my gaze sweep the room. "So, ladies," I said with a grin, "let's rebel together." The room burst into thunderous applause. Some stood up, a few wiped away tears, but every single woman clapped like their hearts depended on it, because in a way, they did. We didn't just celebrate that night. We honored the lives we were finally choosing to live, the burdens we had finally set down, the voices we were finally learning to use, our children, our exes, the world. They could think what they wanted. But we knew the truth. We weren't fading away. We were finally, gloriously coming alive. After the applause faded, the music picked back up, soft jazz drifting through the warm air, and the tables filled with plates of potluck dishes we'd all brought: baked macaroni, fresh garden salads, meatloaf, apple pie, homemade chili, each dish carrying stories of who we'd once been and who we were becoming. I sat with Diane, Marcia, and a few others as we passed around a jug of iced sweet tea and shared stories of our most recent rebellions. Small things to some, but revolutionary to us. Marcia had dyed a streak of pink into her silver hair and joined a motorcycle photography club. Susan had gotten a tattoo of a tiny sunflower on her wrist, just beneath the old watch her late mother gave her. Diane had started dating again, online. We teased her relentlessly, but all with love. "I've got a rule now," Diane said between sips of tea. "If he can't cook, clean, or compliment me, he's not worth a text back." We all howled with laughter, heads thrown back, years of silence and servitude melting into something fierce and freeing. Later that evening, I stepped outside for some air. The night had fallen gently over San Francisco, cool and clear. I could hear waves from the bay whispering against the rocks in the distance, the city lights blinking like stars that had forgotten they weren't in the sky. I looked up and whispered a quiet prayer, not of request, but of thanks. Thanks for the stroke that changed everything. Thanks for the betrayal that woke me up. Thanks for the second chance I never expected, but grabbed with both hands. For so long, I believed it was too late to change, too late to speak up, too late to start over. But standing there, a light breeze lifting my hair, I knew the truth. It's never too late to choose yourself.